UNTV News and Rescue.
Tonight on Y News, the Philippine government and the communist rebel group signed an indefinite ceasefire deal.
President Rodrigo Duterte promises to release 4.7 billion pesos for the pension backlog of AFP retirees and widows of World War II veterans.
The Bureau of Jail Management and Penology plans to have the inmates in its detention facilities undergo drug testing.
The joint resolution on the proposed postponement of the Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections is set to be submitted to the lower house tomorrow.
The Department of Labor and Employment grants financial assistance to 8 stranded Filipino workers in Jeddah.
UNTV Cup Season 5 kicks off tonight with 13 teams to battle on the hard court.
Y News begins now.
UNTV News and Rescue Command Center. This is Y News with Angelo Castro III, Gerry Alcantara, and Darlene Basingan.
Good evening. The signed agreement of an indefinite ceasefire between the Philippine government and communist rebels is considered a major success and an unprecedented move in the history of the peace process. Yoshiko Sata will tell us why.
Department of Labor and Employment Secretary and Government Peace Negotiating Panel Chief Silvestre Bello III shares with UNTV News the result of the peace talks in Oslo, Norway, during the signing ceremony last Friday. He also says that it is considered as an accomplishment and the first in the history of the peace process.
Napakagandang balita at sa wakas ay pumayag na sila ng tigil putukan, ceasefire. Pagod ng ating mga kababayan dito sa nangyayari na kaguluhan. Siguro papanahon na kako na tapusin na natin itong usapang ito at magkakaroon na tayo ng final peace agreement.
The indefinite ceasefire deal was signed between the government's chief peace negotiators Silvestre Bello III and National Democratic Front Panel Chief Luisa Landoni. According to Bello, the agreement was supposed to end on August 27, but after the discussions, they have agreed to make the ceasefire deal indefinite. They have also created a joint ceasefire monitoring committee to ensure that both parties will not violate the agreement. The committee will also have a meeting on September to tackle the grounds for monitoring by both parties.
Meron kaming create na tinatawag naming ceasefire monitoring committee. At mag-uusap sila kung ano yung mga mechanics, kung hanggang saan yung pwersa nila, hanggang saan yung pwersa natin.
They have also agreed on the accelerated peace process or the setting of a faster process in pursuing within 6 months the agreement for a lasting peace.
In fact, sa October 8 to 12, babalik na naman tayo sa Oslo at pag-usapan muli yung mga dapat pag-usapan. Pero in the meantime, yung mga working committees magtatrabaho na dito sa Pilipinas.
Other issues that were resolved in the week-long discussions are the social, economic, political, and constitutional reforms prior to the formation of a final agreement for the end of hostilities and disposition of forces. Yoshiko Sata, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
A security expert and a lawmaker do not believe that the new People's Army will completely surrender their firearms, even if a final peace deal is sealed between the government and the National Democratic Front, or NDF. Rodrigo Mendoza will tell us why.
Some experts and lawmakers are skeptical about the surrender of the new People's Army should a final peace agreement is reached between the government and the National Democratic Front. Retired General Rodolfo Mendoza a counter-terrorism expert says they have solid information that the rebel group will not put their firearms aside. The former official refused to give further details but says the members of the government peace panel is aware of this.
The NPA, as I've said earlier, will be reluctant to surrender their arms even there is already a disposition of forces within the track of peace agreement.
He adds that there is a high possibility that some groups opposed to the talks with the government will break away from the NPA. Such thing, he says, happened in the case of Nepal.
Nagkaroon ng critical collaboration yung Nepal Communist Party with the government, pero yung armed rebels niya hindi sinurinder ng pera. So what happened is nagkaroon ng panibagong party.
Even Magdalo Party List Representative Gerry says it is hard to believe that the rebels will recognize the government, which they are fighting and trying to overthrow in the past 4 decades.
We should be hopeful about this peace process that finally we will achieve, we will put closure to the issue of insurgency in the country, but we should also remember the lessons of the past.
Secretary Jesus Dureza, a member of the government peace panel, however, says what is important as of now is that the first phase of the talks was successful, with the government and the rebels agreeing to set aside the armed conflict. Rodrigo Mendoza, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Retirees of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and widows of World War II veterans will soon get more financial aid from the government. Nina Armilio tells us why.
Armed Forces of the Philippines retirees like Valentin Abihan have long been waiting for an additional increase in their benefits. This is also true for war veterans like Wilfredo Valenzuela, who fought in the bloody World War II in the 1940s. That's why the now senior citizens are related after learning that President Rodrigo Duterte has ordered the release of 4.7 billion pesos for AFP retirees, World War II veterans, and widows of deceased veterans.
Tulong sa mga pamilya ng mga veterano.
Abay, natutuwa na rin kami dahil malaking grasya yan eh. Di ba? Kasamahan namin sa federation yung makikinabang.
The 4.7 billion pesos is allotted for the administrative liabilities of the Armed Forces of the Philippines pension arrears. Part of the arrearages is the differential pension that should have been received by the retired soldiers and World War II veterans aside from their regular pension. The said amount was actually part of the 2016 budget under the previous administration, but it was not released because of the election ban.
For those who were not paid by the previous administrations, actually all of them, for release is 4.7 billion for the payment of the total administrative liability (TAD) arrears of widows and deceased World War II veterans and AFP retirees who are 80 years old and above.
3.5 billion pesos of the amount will go to the widows of the World War II veterans, while 1.2 billion pesos is for AFP retirees aged 80 years old and above, while 1.2 billion pesos is for AFP retirees aged 80 years old and above. For an association of retired soldiers, the additional benefit serves as a very big help for the retired soldiers and war veterans, especially the sick ones.
Kami nagpapasalamat sa ating masipag at talagang masigasig at maunawaing Pangulo na nabigyan pansin ng ginamang ng retirees.
Nina Armilio, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, or BJMP, continues its internal cleansing efforts. Leia Ilagan tells us why.
The Bureau of Jail Management and Penology or BJMP will immediately relieve the assigned prison wardens of the inmates who would test positive for illegal drugs. According to BJMP Chief Director Serafin Barreto, it is part of the agency's internal cleansing efforts. BJMP will be conducting a drug test among 115,786 inmates with the help of local government units.
Diyan namin determine kung yung isang jail ay drug-free na. Wala nang gumagamit ng droga sa loob. Kasi kung mayroong gumagamit yan, talagang may indication na nasusuhulag pa ang aming mga personnel na magpasok ng droga sa loob.
Barreto adds that they are addressing the problems of their prison cells. He says BJMP has started to decongest detention facilities such as the Quezon City Jail. It has a capacity of 870 inmates, yet its total occupants have reached 3,962. Because of this, new inmates will temporarily be brought to the Quezon City Jail Annex in Bicutan. Moreover, Barreto says that BJMP has started the construction of additional detention facilities in Region 4A. BJMP aims to add over 200 more jail facilities next year.
Pinag-usapan ng judge na wag na silang mag-commit doon o dalhin, i-commit ang mga inmates, bagong inmates sa Bicutan. Pero doon po sige pa rin. So pag natapos na po yung mga building na pinapagawang bago, so 4A, doon naman namin po ipapadala.
Barreto reveals that BJMP is considering putting up a tele-hearing or teleconferencing similar to the process in Thailand where inmates do not have to be transferred to the venue of their hearings. Meanwhile, BJMP will be joining forces with the Philippine National Police and the Bureau of Fire Protection in the eastern section of Metro Manila to intensify their campaign against illegal drugs. BJMP and BFP will coordinate closely with the police about information on illegal drug activities inside the New Bilibid prison and other establishments.
Ang sumatotal is a close coordination. Expecting strengthening namin close to, although we belong to one family which is the DILG, but we have different mandates. So gusto namin in our effort, in our war against drugs, mayroon kami isang direction lang.
Leia Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
The Department of the Interior and Local Government will ask for more funds for the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology. Ray Pelayo tells us why.
The Department of the Interior and Local Government, who oversees the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, says that the congestion rate in jails run by the BJMP is now at 457%, meaning a cell that is supposed to house 10 inmates has 46 people crammed inside it.
Yung problema natin ngayon, hindi po tinataasan ng husto yung budget natin for the construction of jails.
The department will ask the Budget Department and the Congress for additional funds so they could build bigger jail facilities. However, the department also wants a revision in the rules on where to build the jails.
We need to coordinate with the COA kasi po, we can only build jails on lands owned by the BJMP.
They also want to resolve the shortage in the number of jail guards. Ideally, the jail guard to inmate ratio is 1:7, but it is now at 1:47. During transport of inmates to courts or hospitals, one jail guard must guard a single inmate. However, the present situation is one jail guard is looking over 17 inmates.
Kaya po natatakasan tayo. Kaya po nagkakaproblema sa bantay.
The DILG also wants to raise the meal allowance for each inmate, which is now at 50 pesos per day, and to have additional vehicle for BJMP jail facilities. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
House Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reform Chairman Sherwin Tugna is certain that the joint resolution to be filed in Congress will fast-track the proposed postponement of barangay and SK elections. Grace Casin tells us why.
This week, House Speaker Pantalon Alvarez will file the joint resolution calling for the postponement of the Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan or SK elections from October 30 this year to October 30, 2017. The House Speaker adds that the Executive Department needs to appoint several positions and that conducting elections would result in a conflict.
Sa tingin ko naman siguro practical lang na ipagpaliban muna natin yung eleksyon. Dahil alam po natin lahat, no, pagka may eleksyon, ay hindi po pwedeng mag-appoint.
House Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms Chairman Sherwin Tugna says once the joint committee is filed, it would only take a week for the proposal to be implemented.
Probably Wednesday or probably next Monday, that will be September 5 or 6. Meron ng joint House resolution with Senate. So, maka-fast track na to. Ako sa palagay ko, it will only take around 7 days.
President Rodrigo Duterte has earlier stated that he is in favor of postponing the Barangay and SK elections because he is afraid that the drug money will seep into the election process.
Do you know the reason why I also agreed with Congress, some congressmen, to postpone the barangay elections? Do you know why? Because I am afraid that the drug money will seep into the electoral process.
To date, 17 senators have signed the draft committee report of the Senate Committee on Local Government to postpone the said elections. Because of this, the Commission on Election decided to tentatively stop the printing of the ballots. COMELEC Chairman Andres Bautista says it seems that the President and the Congress have forged a consensus to postpone the Barangay and SK elections. 411,000 ballots have been printed since COMELEC started printing on August 21. 85 million ballots are needed in Barangay and SK elections. Bautista hopes that legislation on Barangay and SK elections will be effected as soon as possible. But according to COMELEC Printing Committee head, unless there is a law or a joint resolution from Congress on the postponement by September 1, they will resume the printing. Youth groups that are against the postponement are yet to give their official statement on the matter. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
President Rodrigo Duterte is willing to give a 2 million peso reward for the capture of policemen involved in illegal drug trade. Nina Armilio will tell us why.
2 million pesos was the promised reward of President Rodrigo Duterte to those who can capture ninja or policemen involved in illegal drugs operations. President Duterte gave the instructions primarily to military and police to totally destroy the illegal drug apparatus in the country.
So today I might be inclined to place a reward on their head the members of the ninja or members of the police who are then protecting the drug syndicates in this country. I'm placing per head 2 million. And if you are there, you might want to ipagbili mo na yung mga kaibigan ninyo.
The statement of the president was made during the commemoration of the National Heroes Day in the Libingan ng Mga Bayani in Taguig City this morning. President Duterte says his administration's anti-illegal drugs campaign is a war and not just a simple issue but should be considered a national security problem. He also reiterated his promise to soldiers and policemen about taking full responsibility for any legal issues that may face in the course of carrying out his anti-illegal drugs campaign. Aside from this, he once again promised to eradicate corruption in the government and criminality under his administration.
I would destroy corruption in government, and it will be done. Whether they like it or not, it will be a clean government at the end of the day. I said I will fight criminality and drugs. Most of the criminal acts are really on the account of the drug menace.
Nina Armilio, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Next in Wine News. President Rodrigo Duterte visits the police officers who were casualties in the anti-drugs operations in Marabut, Samar.
The Department of Labor and Employment grants financial assistance to 8 stranded Filipino workers in Jeddah.
Wine News will be right back.
Rodrigo Duterte once again reiterates that even police officers die and get injured in their operations against illegal drug trade. Gladys Tawabi tells us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte visits today the wake of the policeman who was killed and the officer that got injured in the anti-illegal drug operations in Marabut, Samar last Thursday. The president first visited the family of slain PO1 Gerry in Barangay San Pablo, Sitio Waling-Waling, Catbalugan, Samar. After which, the president proceeded to St. Paul's Hospital in Tacloban City to visit PO1 Nestor Villanueva Jr., one of the wounded in the said operation. Cabaguing and Villanueva were both part of the anti-drug operations in Marabut, Samar last week when they were supposed to arrest former rebels turned drug dealers Ernesto Gonzalez. Confiscated inside the house of Gonzalez were various drug paraphernalia, 3 sachets of suspected shabu, an improvised shotgun, a number of ammunition, and a grenade. In his speech, the president emphasized that there are indeed policemen who get killed in operations against illegal drugs.
Ang masakit dito, binibilang ang patay ng mga gangster na may kasalanan sa society. Yung mga pulis, patay na, hindi naman nila nabibigyan. Hindi nga nila mabigyan yung tao, bata na pinutula ng ulo. I have not heard anybody from the human rights. You consider bigotry. Gusto lang talaga ako titirahin, ay hindi ako maniwala sa kanila.
The president also encourages the police to carry on its war against illegal drugs while promising them that he will not forsake them as long as they follow orders.
Tutulong ako sa kanila whatever it takes. I would like to assure everybody and the police and the law enforcement and all that sa trabaho nila, if they are charged or get into trouble in the performance of their duties, they can hold me responsible. I will assume all legal and official responsibility for their actions.
Authorities continue its manhunt against Gonzalez, who escaped in the middle of the crossfire. Gladys Tawabi, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
A health advocate group wants the current anti-smoking policy in the Philippines to adopt the anti-smoking ordinance of Davao City. Monokson tells us why.
Though known to be prohibited by law, cigarette smoking in public places is rampant anywhere. In line with this, a health advocate group wants a stricter law on the smoking ban in the country. Eme Rojas of the New Voice Association of the Philippines said that the best way to do it is to adopt the anti-smoking ordinance of Davao City.
Sa Davao po kasi, unang-una, bawal talaga totally sa mga enclosed places. Bawal din pati e-cigarettes at saka yung shisha. Hindi lang sigarilyo ang bawal, kundi pati yung mga other forms of smoking o other forms of tobacco use.
Public smoking is banned in Davao. This was strictly implemented by President Rodrigo Duterte when he was still mayor. Smoking tobacco, e-cigarettes or similar devices is prohibited, including in public vehicles. Davao's anti-smoking task force makes sure business establishments follow the prescribed parameters for smoking. Each establishment is allowed only one open space smoking area, measuring not more than 5 square meters and located 10 meters from doors. Violators face penalties based on the frequency of their offense. 1,000 pesos fine or month-long jail time for the first offense. 2,500 or 2-month jail time for the second offense. And 5,000 pesos or 4 months in jail for the third offense. Republic Act 9211, or known as the Tobacco Regulation Act of 2003, prohibits smoking in public places. But the group believes that this is not fully implemented because they can still see smokers everywhere.
Yung Republic Act 9211 ay meron ng prohibition sa paninigarilyo sa mga public places. Kaya lang, una, hindi ito napapatupad ng talagang matindi. At pangalawa, kailangan palakasin mo ito dahil doon meron pa rin provision na pwedeng manigarilyo sa loob ng enclosed spaces.
Based on the last study conducted by the World Health Organization, 10 people die every day due to cigarette smoking, and more than 17 million out of more than 63 million adults are cigarette smokers in the Philippines. That is why it is still good to know that there are still many who are against smoking, especially in public places.
Yung iba kasi na hindi na nagarilyo, makakalangap yan ng halimbawa, usok. Magkaroon sila ng sakit.
Payag din, sir. Maraming apekto kasi, sir, sa katawan niya. Cancer, sa baga, sa ganon.
Mon Hocson, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The Department of Tourism is working on boosting the tourism industry in Visayas and Mindanao. Gladys Tuwabi will tell us why.
The Philippines is a country with popular tourist sites such as Puerto Princesa in Palawan and Boracay in the Visayas, among others. And as the new administration takes office, the Department of Tourism under the Duterte administration is now focusing to boost the tourism industry even more, particularly in Visayas and Mindanao.
Actually, I wanted it in Visayas because I would like the focus now will be in Mindanao and Visayas, and then in Clark because it will be in the northern part of Luzon. Medyo tapos ng Manila di ba? In Boracay, kilalang-kilala na. So I'd rather focus it here in the Visayas and Mindanao.
Several international events will also be held in the country. One of such is the Miss Universe pageant, as confirmed by DOT Secretary Wanda Tulfo Teo, and Cebu will have a participation in it. Another is the 50th anniversary of Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, next year. These events are expected to bring more tourists in the country, especially in Cebu.
Especially with our exposure of the Miss Universe, I'm sure, and also the ASEAN 50. We will be having it here in the Philippines, so we expect tourists to come in. Yes, Cebu will have a participation in the ASEAN. One of the meetings will be here in Cebu.
The agency will have another slogan for the next year to entice more tourists to visit the country.
We will have to look for another logo. No, it's actually the campaign is working, but then if we could get another logo that will entice more tourists to come, I think that would be better. Kasi gano'n naman yan, if used to na sila, so you have to look for another logo again that will be enticing tourists.
Teo is confident that the rampant killings in the country will not affect tourism in the country. Meanwhile, DOT also welcomes the plans of rerouting flights to Visayas and Mindanao.
The promotion, because of the airport, it has to decongest Manila, so the focus now will be in Visayas, in Cebu especially. So from Cebu, they will be connecting flights to Mindanao, and this is developing Visayas and Mindanao.
Gladys Tuwabi, UNTV News and Rescue, Cebu.
The consulate office in Dubai leads the first ASEAN Business Forum of representatives from ASEAN member states, businessmen, and community leaders. March Navarro will tell us why.
Delegates from Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, and the Philippines gathered in the first Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Business Forum in Dubai. Led by Philippine Consul General Paul Raymond Cortez, the forum discussed programs that would help edify the economic cooperations among ASEAN member countries to the benefit of the civil society groups and NGOs in order to contribute to the global economy. The forum coincides with the celebration of the 49th anniversary of the establishment of ASEAN.
And we have planned this as a networking event for our ASEAN peoples here in Dubai and Northern Emirates, primarily because we want to build greater interaction, greater cooperation.
Among the attendees were Malaysian Consul General Yubaslan Yusof, Consul General Chong Ming Fung of Singapore, Consul General Arsaf Firman of Indonesia, and Consul General Yunop Burnasat of Thailand, together with some community leaders who believe on the importance of strong diplomatic relations towards the establishment of an ASEAN community. The Philippines has the largest ASEAN expatriate community in UAE, which numbers to 7,000 Filipinos. March Navarro, UNTV News and Rescue.
The Department of Labor and Employment grants the financial assistance requested by 8 Filipino overseas Filipino workers who are currently stranded in Jeddah, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
8 overseas Filipino workers employed by Rio Trading and Contracting Company are currently stranded in Jeddah, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They have been stranded for 7 months and it has been 10 months since they stopped receiving their salary. They are just a few of the many distressed OFW in KSA. These 8 workers approached Kuya Daniel's program Bawal ang Pikon on August 24. One of them sent an email to the program asking about the financial assistance being offered by the Department of Labor and Employment. It was also stated in the email that they went to the Philippine Embassy in Jeddah for a couple of times to seek some help, but the agency said that their company had no records in their office. On the program Get It Straight with Kuya Daniel Razon earlier today, they said OFWs had a chance to talk personally to Secretary Silvestre Bello III via Skype. Alexander Auxilio was among the 8 stranded OFWs who asked Dole for financial assistance which they intended to give to their families here in the Philippines while waiting for their salary from their company.
Yung tungkol sa financial assistance, huwag po kayong mag-alala dahil meron kaming board resolution sa OWA na yung binigay naming kalahating bilyon ay para sa lahat ng mga OFW dyan. Hindi lang yung pinipiling kumpanya.
Aside from financial assistance, they also brought up their issues with a certain Mr. Angel Cruz, the welfare officer assigned in Jeddah, KSA.
Mabuti na banggit mo sa akin yung Angel Cruz na yan at dahil marami na kong natatanggap na balita na nangungutong yung tarantadong yan eh. Mabuti pinarating mo, ipaparecall ko agad dyan si Angel Cruz para hindi naman may merwiso sa ating mga kababayan dyan. Sabihin mo sa ating mga kababayan, lahat kayo dyan Alex, na tutulungan namin kayo kahit na hindi kayo kasama dun sa malalaking kumpanya, sasakupin na namin kayo para makauwi kayo o kaya makuha ninyo agad yung inyong asweldo dyan.
The group is very thankful and hoping that Dole will grant their request for the benefit of their families here in the Philippines. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
2 stranded overseas Filipino workers in Saudi Arabia are able to return home through UNTV Serbisyong Kasangbahay. Mabel Razon will tell us why.
2 stranded overseas Filipino workers in Saudi Arabia have returned home after UNTV's Serbisyong Kasangbahay granted them free airline tickets. This after their unfavorable working experience in the Middle East. One of the OFWs identified as Dennis Dianco arrived in the Philippines last Saturday. He decided to ask help from Serbisyong Kasangbahay because he was deprived of proper compensation.
Salamat po ako sa programa ni Daniel sa Serbisyong Kasangbahay. Una-una po kasi makakauwi na po, makakasama ko na yung pamilya ko. Pinapabot ko sa kanya yung taos-pusong pasasalamat po.
Dennis started working with Al Alamiya Company in December 2015, but unfortunately, it has poor financial system. The other OFW, Noe Dayawan, was in the same situation. He was stranded in Saudi Arabia for 3 months because the company he was working for suddenly ceased to operate. According to Noe, he raised his concerns to the Philippine Overseas Labor Office, but the agency couldn't help as he was no longer a member of Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWA. Because of this, Noe was thankful that he was able to seek help from UNTV's Serbisyong Kasangbahay.
Ako po yung nagpapasalamat at masaya dahil sa programa na Kasambahay at sa UNTV ako po ay nakakauwi ng libre. At ito po masaya dahil ilang oras na lang ay makakaalis naman sa Saudi.
Mabel Razon, UNTV News and Rescue, Dammam, Saudi Arabia.
More than 1,000 residents of a village in Pampanga have expressed their gratitude to the Members Church of God International. Yoshiko Sato will tell us why.
Dahil gusto kong humingi ng tulong para sa mga kakangailangan ng karamdaman ko. Kasi wala na ako nag-aanap buhay. Yung anak ko nakikipaglaba lang siya. Minsan kasi nagkukulangan din pa ako ng gamot. Kaya gusto ko sanang magpatulong kung sino man ang maaaring tumulong sa akin.
Though considered a first-class city, residents in some areas in San Fernando City, Pampanga still live below poverty line. These include Barangay Buluan, where Elisa Olalia lives. Like Elisa, many of Barangay Buluan's 27,000 residents suffer from health problems but could not afford to consult a doctor. These prompted Emmanuel Quizon, one of the residents, to request a medical mission from UNTV. And as a part of its advocacy, UNTV, together with Members Church of God International, granted their wish for a free medical mission.
Magpapasalamat po kami sa UNTV. Binigyan kami ng pagkakataon na ganitong event ng medical mission.
Nabanggit po kanina, first time po.
First time pa lang po dito sa barangay na to.
Ito po yung malaking bagay para sa amin, hindi lang po para sa amin, sa buong barangay ng Bulaon. Unang-una sa ating mga talagang mahihirap na barangay natin. So ito nakita ko, tuwang-tuwa sila dahil sa nangyari, iba't ibang medical lang nandito.
Among the free medical services rendered to Barangay Bulaon residents by UNTV Serbisyong Kasangbahay were medical adult and pediatric consultations, optical services with free eyeglasses, chest x-ray, and free tooth extraction. Some of the residents were also provided with free legal services. The free medical mission is catered to over 1,000 residents of Bulaon, including Elisa.
Minsan kasi, binabaliwanan yung karamdaman ko. Tinitiis ko na lang dahil wala kami pambili. Maraming salamat po. Marami po. Malaking tulong sa akin ito. Dahil sa medical mission na ito, natutulungan ako.
Yoshiko Sata, for Serbisyong Kasambahay.
Coming up, the UNTV Cup Season 5 kicks off tonight with 30 teams to battle on the hard court.
Ox race attracts thousands of visitors in Bavaria.
More from Y News after this break. The southwest monsoon is continuously affecting the western section of northern and central Luzon. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAG-ASA, says the region of Ilocos, provinces of Batanes, Benguet, Zambales, Bataan, and the Babuyan group of islands will experience moderate to occasionally heavy rains that may cause landslides and flash floods, especially in low-lying areas. Metro Manila and the rest of Luzon will experience light to moderate rains, while fair weather with isolated rain showers and thunderstorms will prevail over Visayas and Mindanao. No tropical cyclone is seen to affect the country over the next 3 days. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry meets with Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Meanwhile, Nairobi summit ends as Japan pledges $30 billion for Africa. Marge Navarro will tell us why.
In Bangladesh, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry arrives in Bangladesh today to discuss security cooperation after a series of killings by Islamist militants as well as human rights violations. Kerry meets with Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and the opposition and civic leaders during the one-day visit, his first in Bangladesh as Secretary of State. The Bangladeshi government has insisted the latest attacks, including the recent killings at a cafe that targeted non-Muslims and foreigners, are the work of homegrown groups. Michael Kugelman of the Wilson Center, a Washington-based think tank, says the U.S. administration has not paid enough attention to the growing terror threats in Bangladesh, which is now impacting Americans. In Cambodia, Cambodia's minister in charge of border issues Van Kim Hung and his Vietnamese counterpart Lee Hoai Chung lead delegations for talks aimed at resolving their outstanding border disputes today at the Council of Ministers building in Phnom Penh. Committees from the two countries are considering a draft agreement approved by their respective prime ministers. The agreement includes a request in which they have agreed to ask France for help to map the border after reports that Vietnam has dug ponds and built a military outpost on the Cambodian side. The border between the two countries was established using French colonial maps and the Cambodian constitution. The two countries plan to establish 317 markers by the end of the year and then plan to start talks on their sea border. And in Kenya, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says he is optimistic that a further $30 billion in investment pledged at the Africa-Japan Summit would help optimize African growth and be disbursed in close cooperation with all stakeholders. The 6th Tokyo International Conference on African Development in Nairobi brought together 34 African heads of state and more than 10,000 delegates. Abe said the package would be spread over 3 years from this year and include $10 billion for infrastructure projects to be executed through cooperation with the African Development Bank. Resource-poor Japan has long been interested in tapping Africa's vast natural resources, even more so since dependence on oil and natural gas imports jumped after the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster shut almost all of Japan's nuclear reactors. Japan's overall direct investment in Africa totaled $1.24 billion in 2015. Its presence in infrastructure projects ranges from roads, ports, and airports to power plants. Marge Navarro, UNTV News and Rescue.
Six crew members exit the Mars simulation dome after 365 days. Aaron Romero will tell us why.
After 365 days, 6 scientists exited a mock-up Mars habitat on a Hawaiian after practicing living a red planet simulator which mirrors life in an isolated geodesic dome. Volunteers from France, Germany, and the United States left the 1,000 square foot solar-powered dome. Since entering the dome, the crew members have ventured out only for simulated spacewalks, fully attired in mock spacesuits. The crew includes German physicist and engineer Christian Heinecke, French astrobiologist Cyprien Verseau, and engineer Andrew Stewart, who was born in Banbury, England. The year-long experiment is the 4th and longest so far in the Hawaii Space Exploration Analog and Simulation, or HI-SEAS project, which is funded by NASA and overseen by the University of Hawaii. The point of the project is to create guidelines for future missions to Mars, the long-term goal of the United States human space program.
I can give you my personal impression, which is that a mission to Mars in the close future is realistic. I think the technological and psychological obstacles can be overcome.
Just showing that it works, you can actually get water from a ground that is seemingly dry. It would work on Mars, and the implication is that you would be able to get water on Mars from this little greenhouse construct.
In May, NASA awarded HI-SEAS a 3rd grant to keep the research project and its missions funded through 2018. Aaron Romero, UNTV News and Rescue, New York.
Spaniard David de la Cruz wins the 9th stage of the Tour of Spain. Meanwhile, Russian Artem Silchenko scores his first cliff diving trophy since 2014. Aaron Romero is back to tell us why.
Spaniard David de la Cruz won the 9th stage of the Tour of Spain and moved into the lead in the general classification ahead of Nairo Quintana. Edic's quick-step rider de la Cruz finished 27 seconds ahead of Belgian Dries Devenines, following a commanding late attack on the final climb of the 164.5-kilometer stage from Cistierna to Alto de Naranco, and will wear the red jersey in Monday's stage from Lugones to Lagos de Covadonga. Italian Moreno Moser came 3rd, a further 6 seconds behind Devenines. De la Cruz entered the stage in 15th place, led Colombian Quintana by 22 seconds, and was a further 19 seconds ahead of compatriot Alejandro Valverde, who moved 8 seconds in front of Tour de France winner Chris Froome. The Briton finished together with Quintana, Spaniard Alberto Contador, and Colombian Johan Esteban Chavez, 2 minutes and 56 seconds behind De La Cruz. Meanwhile, Gary Hunt's winning run in the Red Bull Cliff Diving World Series came to an end at the hands of Russia's Artem Silchenko at Polignano a Mare in Italy. Hunt was aiming for his first consecutive victory, but failed even to make the final round for only the third time in his career. Silchenko produced his first victory on the tour since 2014, thanks to a brilliant final dive which left American Steven Lobu second and Jonathan Paredes third. Despite his disappointment in Polignano a Mare, Britain Hunt still leads the championship with 740 points from Mexico's Paredes, second on 660, 200 ahead of third place Andy Jones of the United States. Silchenko's victory boosted him into sixth place in the standings with 4 events still to go before the end of the season. Aaron Romero, UNTV News and Rescue, New York.
A new team is added to the League of Public Servants as the new season of the UNTV Cup formally opens tonight. Mon Ocson is at the Mall of Asia Arena to tell us why, live. Yes, Mon.
Yes, Darlene, a basketball tournament among the country's public servants welcomes the Bureau of Customs transformers as the newest member of the family when it launches its 6th season today here at the Mall of Asia in Pasay City. UNTV Cup is the brainchild of multi-awarded broadcaster Kuya Daniel Razon. The event will give public servants another opportunity to play an active role in helping the unprivileged members of society through basketball. From 6 teams during the inaugural tournament a few years ago, the tournament now has a total of 13 teams from the different government agencies, where the champion team will be donating its prize money to its chosen beneficiary. Other participating teams are the Philippine National Police, Senate, House of Representatives, Department of Justice, Metro Manila Development Authority, Bureau of Fire, GSIS, and National Housing Authority. A total of 12 teams competed in the UNTV Cup Season 4. AFP, Cavaliers, and TLP responders were competed in a best-of-3 final series, of which the AFP clinched the championship title of Season 4. Opening day matches will be known only after the drawing of lots. That's our live update here in MOA Arena in Pasay. Back to you, Darlene.
Thank you, Mon Ocson, reporting live from Mall of Asia Arena. More than 10,000 people gather in the sunshine to watch the traditional Muensing ox race in Bavaria. Robbie de Guzman tells us why.
Thousands of people enjoy the oxen racing in the traditional ox race in the Bavarian town of Muensing, which took place for the 6th time. Around 10,000 people descended on the small town in Bavaria to watch the riders and their oxen compete in bright sunshine as temperatures soared. Normally known for standing around chewing the cud, the oxen are sent down a 100-meter-long course. The Muensing race was so popular because ox races were so rare.
Ich glaube, das ist eine Tradition, die nicht in vielen Dörfern vertreten ist. Irgendwelche Bauern haben sich mal überlegt, komm, wir probieren jetzt mal aus, auf einem Ochsen zu reiten. Das hat erstaunlich gut funktioniert und ja, jetzt machen wir mal ein Wettrennen und dann ist das so alle 4 Jahre zur Kultur geworden und ich glaube, dass das von der Popularität her eine ganze Menge anzieht, weil das eben nicht in vielen Dörfern so passiert, ja.
In the end, it was Michael Fatrich on his ox base who won the race.
Ich habe mich insofern vorbereitet, dass ich mich schon immer versucht habe, auf zum Hocker und dann lang zum Hocker bleiben. Gell? Ich habe mich oft abgeworfen am Anfang, aber da heißt es einfach, genau, da heißt es einfach, Hocker bleiben, festhalten, gut festhalten am Anfang und einfach nicht mehr auslassen. Gell?
The Muensinger Ox Race takes place every 4 years. Robbie de Guzman, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Those are the reasons behind the news August 29, 2016. I am Gerry Alcantara.
Reasons we delivered to you as they unfold. I am Darlene Basingan.
Because we need to know.
We will always ask why.
Thank you for watching Y News.